In this video, I'm going to show you how to convert your current audience into conversations and booked calls using Instagram stories. Now, a lot of people, they get carried away with the top of funnel stuff, right? The vanity metrics, likes, followers. However, when they actually get people into their ecosystem, they struggle to actually convert these people into conversations and calls. What we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through the whole process and how to actually structure your IG stories on a weekly basis so you can make it as predictable as possible and increase the amount of inbound leads you're getting, which is going to result in more conversations and more booked calls. Let's get straight into it. We're going to build a story system that turns your views, attention. It's going to nurture people, build trust, and then give people the path to take action. Let's dive right in. Why stories are your number one conversion channel, right? Stories are the place your audience watches you every day, right? It builds trust. It shows behind the scenes. It gives people a more raw and authentic view of you as a person, as opposed to regular scripted kind of feed posts. So they see proof. They hear your way of thinking. They receive your offers all in the same place. And this isn't necessarily for getting attention, right? The stories get pushed to people who are already in your audience. So we don't really care about likes, views, and stuff. This is your trust engine, okay? So we're building trust, we're breaking beliefs, we're generating leads, we're booking calls, and we're getting more clients out of it. What I want you to do is to rate your current story strategy, okay? And be completely honest with yourself. We want to know where the weakest areas are so that you can generate the fastest wins here. Number one, we've got frequency of posting. How often are you actually posting on stories? Use of call to actions, right? Vulnerability and relatability. Are you actually opening up and showing people a behind the scenes and a more in-depth view of what goes on in your head? Are you doing offer stories, lead gen stories, right? Pushing people to resources. Are you displaying social proof? Are you being consistent? Do you have a consistent flow? Or is it just random quotes and reposts, right? Because there's obviously a big difference between stories that actually play a role and stories that are just random, filling up your story feed. And if you do too much of that, people are just going to get completely desensitized to it and they're not going to be bothered. And obviously inbound leads from stories, okay? What's the average number per week that you're getting right now? So if you rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 of all these things, we're going to be able to identify what the weakest area is and we can solve that. So these are the 6 psychological triggers of story selling. So they're built on human behavior. It's not necessarily marketing, but most coaches, they only ever use maybe one of these. However, if you stack all of 6, then every story has a job and there's a clear outcome for each kind of thing. So number 1 is scarcity and urgency, right? Real limits move people. So people need to know why they should take action now. Number 2 is proximity and consistency. So daily touch points, showing up and building trust. So people want to connect with you as a human. Number 3 is relatability and vulnerability. So actually showing them the real you, right? Moments that you had to overcome, small wins, right? Things like that. Number 4 is micro commitments. So things like polls, little engagement buttons, Q&As, stuff like that, that encourages people. It almost like gamifies it a little bit, encourages people to actually take action. Not necessarily take action, but just engage with you, right? So you can see who is actually paying attention and who isn't. And these little micro commitments are also just another way of you qualifying people as well and just gauging interest. Number 5 is the most important, social proof. And then number 6 is novelty and pattern interrupt. So let's dive in. So let's talk about social proof first, because a lot of people mess this up. People will just post one before and after screenshot or one client win with no context, right? What actually converts people here is the story behind it, okay? How it actually affects someone emotionally. So here's a little simple framework that you should follow every time you post about a client win. So number 1 is the before state, right? Where they were, the frustration, the failed attempts, the old belief they have, those keeping them stuck, the new belief they had to instill in order to actually see this through and get the result that you're showing, the screenshot or the evidence. 5, the after state, so how they feel or what the result was of seeing through this new belief and new way of doing things. And then number 6 is now that you need to give them a path to take action every time you show a client win. Don't just do a random before and after. Actually make it into a sequence that takes people through a small journey and actually gives them a pathway to do something about it if they want to. So the screenshot is the receipt, but the story is what actually does the convincing here. So next we have the 5 story conversion frameworks. Okay, the triggers are the why, and these are the what to post and how to do it, right? Each with a job, a cadence, and a format. So we've got belief breaker. trust builder, soft call to action, hard call to action, and engagement farming. So belief breaker, right? We're reframing a limiting belief into an empowering one. Trust builder, a quick win or a struggle you overcame. Could be a client, personal, or whatever it may be, or yourself. Number 3 is the soft call to action. So this isn't like a hard, I'm looking for this amount of people to do this thing. It's more of a value exchange, a lead magnet, a resource, could be a YouTube video. Hard call to action is a direct call out, okay? Now, some people will literally be ready to take action. They just don't know how, or it's just not front of mind in that moment. So by you just simply giving a really direct call to action once a week, for example, you'll be surprised at how many people actually take you up on that, right? And then number 5 is engagement farming. So we're seeing who's interested, we're gauging, it's like a temperature check. And then what that means is the people who are engaging, you can reach out to these people and start a conversation. So obviously there is like a set amount of the recommendations. Belief breaker, 2 to 3, usually a story sequence like of images works well, just with a photo and text. Trust builder, this could just be a quick insight, a quick shout out to a client. To be honest, as many as possible, just like a raw talking head video works really well. Soft call to action, usually just a single image or a story sequence, 1 to 2 per week. I always recommend every YouTube video you upload, you should be promoting that as a reel, and you should be promoting that as an Instagram story as well. Hard call to action, you don't want to do these too often. You should always have a 10 to 1 ask to give ratio. So you want to be giving value, you want to be shifting beliefs, you want to be posting plenty of stories, things like that. So then when you actually do a hard call to action, doesn't seem too salesy. And then engagement farming, this is just where you're qualifying people, you're opening up people to raise their hand, to show interest, so that you can start a conversation with them. So the belief breaker, right? Now, shifting beliefs is probably one of the most important things about running an online fitness coaching business and actually getting people to take action, because what you're doing is you're taking their bad beliefs and ultimately the things that are holding them back internally, and you're shifting them and you're giving them the right mindset in order to actually take action and do something about it. So if you're just posting value content all day, right? How to do a squat better, random tips and tricks, right? You're not actually shifting the beliefs in a way that's going to allow them to take action on their situation. So you need to break the belief or objection, and you need to have them adopt an empowering one that actually allows them to see the light and to see that your way of thinking is superior to everything else. So how to use it, right? Just picking a limiting belief that your ideal client persona has. You want to reframe it by explaining what it is, why it's a problem, what the new belief is, the empowering truth, right? That allows them to, almost like an aha moment, right? They see a little epiphany in your way of thinking. Optionally, proof, right? So if ideally you would do all of these with social proof, as much social proof as possible. So if you have a client win who you can use as an example, as a way to break a belief that someone has, then that's perfect, right? Because it's just evidence that backs it up. And then obviously after you break the belief and they have the new empowering belief, then they're going to see your way of doing things as superior, and they're more likely to actually do something about it. So then you would do the call to action. So the belief here, if we just use this as an example, I just need to eat less and move more, right? You don't get rewarded for eating less, you get rewarded for eating right. Undereating is why your metabolism's wrecked, okay? People are going on crash diets, fad diets. They're taking this very simplistic advice and they don't know how to actually use it in a practical sense because they don't have the right knowledge. So you're shifting the belief around just eating less and moving more, which is ultimately going to cause them to burn out eventually. And you're showing them why that's not necessarily the right way to think about it. And you're showing a client that's lost 18 pounds, eating more calories than they did before. And now you're giving them a resource that explains the changes that you actually made in order for this to happen. So now we've got trust builder. So this could literally be, there's not really a framework for this. It's more just a raw talking head video, shout out to a client, a personal win, showing a bit of vulnerability and maybe a solution around doing that. So you're solving a quick problem based on struggles that you've had before. But by you just opening up about what's going on in your program, what's going on in your past, things you've had to overcome, builds trust, makes you more relatable to people. Now, number 3 is the soft call to action. So this is story to resource to a conversation. And the thing is, most of your audience isn't necessarily ready to buy. They need to be nurtured. They need to have conversations with, they need to be given good value, right? you need to create some goodwill. So that's why using lead magnets and especially Insta videos, which is my preference, because the difference between a little PDF and a YouTube video in terms of how much it nurtures and builds trust is massive. So if you're in the flow of making YouTube videos, you can simply just make that something that you can promote as a lead magnet, right? It's simple. And it's a low friction way to generate conversations because they're not being sold to, they're just reaching out in order for you to actually give them some value here. So you simply just tease it, right? Surface a common problem. Every kind of lead magnet should solve a specific problem, okay? So you want to surface a common problem, ideally a result, and then you want to deliver the mechanism, basically explain why it solves the problem, and then give them a quick action to take, make it very clear. So just as an example here, my client Kieran just finished up his fat loss phase. First time he's ever seen his abs. The key wasn't a fancy diet. It's what we did to actually change his identity that allowed him to actually see this the whole way through, right? So I made a quick video on the 3 daily habits that we implemented to do this. Just DM me identity and I'll send it over to you. So that's just an example there. Then we've got the hard CTA. So we're just doing this once a week, just very direct. If someone's ready to buy, maybe they've decided that in the last week, then boom, they've got another way to take action here. So simply call out, social proof, insight, call to action. You always want to do this at least once a week, but you don't want to do it too often. It really just depends on the ratios. So if you're posting a lot of other sequences, a lot of daily touch points, then you could potentially get away with doing this twice a week. But if your story flow is not that, you don't have much volume there, then asking too much of your audience is actually might decrease trust, right? So just as an example here, I'm taking on 3 more of this kind of person this month who want to do this thing. Kieran is down 21 pounds in 12 weeks, training 3 days a week instead of 6. Most people think you need a crazy routine and willpower in order to get in shape. DM me info and I'll show you the system tailored to your lifestyle. So basically, you can position the call to action as like an audit, as like a, basically you're basically positioning the call as a way to give them value. But you're being direct about the fact that you are looking for this amount of people. 5 is engagement farming. So it could be like a poll, could be a little tap button, agree, or it could be like a Q&A, ask me anything about this topic. And this is also just to trains your audience to say yes. So you're picking up those micro commitments. You're seeing who's interested, who's paying attention. And then obviously you can translate that to a conversation and push these people to a call. So how to use it, right? Qualify pain, figure out what's holding them back, grab the micro yes and open a conversation. It's also just a great way to build touch points as well, especially like the Q&A, because that could be potentially like 5 to 10 bits of value that you're giving in a very short space of time. 1 or 2 call Q&As per week is great. So the last thing, so now you have the frameworks of how to use the call to actions, right? And you should have like at least 4 to 5 call to actions somewhere that people can actually say, yes, that's me. Yes, give me that thing. Will obviously allow you to make more money from your IG stories and actually capitalize on the audience that you already have. The problem a lot of people face is they do have an audience, but they're not they're not nurturing people and they're not giving them a path to take. So they wonder why people don't end up in the DMs. The last thing, so now that you have these frameworks, you can't just do those all the time, right? You need to have a daily engine, right? Touch points. So obviously when someone first follows you, to take them from a stranger to being a client, that's going to take X amount of touch points on average, right? So stories is a great way of increasing the amount of touch points that you're giving someone. So this is how you really build trust and make them more familiar with you. So a story engine can take you from 1 touch point a day, which might just be like a feed post, to 4, 5, right? Because you're posting on your feed, but you're also posting multiple times on your stories as well. And you're not just doing it randomly. You're not just doing a quote or reposting something. Every single story has a role, right? Even these ones as well. So a morning post, right? You're up early, you're showing work ethic, you're showing discipline, you're showing that you're getting after it. Raw thoughts, you're showing authority, you're giving value. You're showing like a behind the scenes. Insights, again, more value. Your productive habits, okay, again, work ethic, discipline. People seeing that you're the person who is walking the walk, who is practicing what you preach. But behind the scenes, again, builds trust, allows people to see what's actually going on behind the sort of facade of like your feed posts and things, which naturally, obviously, a bit more thought and bit scripting in there as well. However, stories is just completely raw and behind the scenes. And then lifestyle, right, just shows that you're human, makes you more relatable, and things like that. So even these daily touch points, which can be very simple, they're all playing a role, right? They're all nurturing and building trust. And then these kind of frameworks here are actually what you're doing in order to actually give people a route to take action. So by combining these things, this is how you're building your story funnel, and you can make it very predictable. So let's talk about the aesthetics. So basically, I've got two examples here, right? And people make their stories look very shit. So what we want is a background photo, right, that we can put text on. So it could be a scenic photo, a gym, anything that's relevant or looks nice. And you want to, ideally, if it's like a gym photo, you can drop the exposure so it's a bit more moody and a bit less generic, right? It has a bit more aesthetic appeal to it. I always use like a black overlay, right? Just so the text kind of pops a bit more. You want to highlight what matters. So like bold numbers, like anything that you want to highlight or emphasize, you can make that bold. You want to avoid big walls of text. You want it like short lines with space between them so it's nice and easy to read and it's easy for people to absorb. And show, don't tell. So if you're talking about a specific example, then make sure you actually give a screenshot of that and you show physical evidence. And then number 6, if you want to actually take it seriously and actually have a bit of attention to detail, I would always recommend building your stories in Canva. So you can build a little template and you can make sure that you're actually making it look nice and aesthetically pleasing. So we've got 2 examples here. So obviously the black overlay, the kind of photo, nice spaced out text. We've got an underline here. We've got bold parts. Same over here. I've changed the color of parts that I want to pop out a bit more. I've put the evidence here with a nice little like white box around it. And yeah, just kind of made the background a bit more dark so the really text pops out a bit more. So you just kind of want to take into account the colors that you're using as well. So for me, my main primary color is this red. So obviously I'm making sure that it's in line with my brand colors and it's not just random colors. So it's super important. Honestly, that's just a few simple things that you can do to make your stories look 10 times better. So now that you can think of, okay, what daily touch points do I want? What story sequences do I need to be doing per week? Now you can actually start to build your story conversion funnel, right? Which should be a weekly mix of belief breaker, a trust builder, a soft call to action, a hard call to action, and some engagement posts as well. So let's have a look at the math here. So let's say you had 7,300 followers. Your story views is around 10%. Your reply rate on your call to actions is 7 to 10%. Conversations, you actually get into a decent conversation with 30 people that reply. Booked call rate 30%. And then let's say you have a very conservative 25% close rate. So just by utilizing stories in a proper manner, not even with a ton of followers, that could result in an extra 4 clients per month. Like that really is the reality of it. As I said before, people are just posting, which is just all they're worrying about is followers and views. They're not thinking about how am I actually getting people into a conversation here? How can I get as many positive replies as possible? Because if your bottleneck is here, you're just not having enough conversations with people because you're not generating enough conversations. Then everything after that point is a bottleneck. This is the bottleneck that's stopping you from booking calls and from closing clients. It's really that simple. So if you already have an audience, but you're not generating conversations, then you have to get on this and you have to be building out like how many inbound leads am I getting and what am I actually doing to get those inbound leads, okay? So as I said, posting is very surface level. A buyer's journey is the game you want to be playing, right? The buyer's journey is the point of time between someone coming into your audience for the first time and being a stranger to becoming a client, right? Obviously, there is a lot of little points and psychological triggers that happen during that time. Most people don't design it, right? So at least from watching this video, you can sit down and literally design what your story sequences should look like on a weekly basis to get your touch points from 1 or 2 to 5 to 6 touch points every day. And every single little post has a role to play and you're giving people enough opportunities to take action. So a lot of people, they just think, oh, I need to post once a day and that's it, which is so tip of the iceberg. So the ones who win design the entire journey, the psychology behind it, that actually turns people into a client, right? So surface level, post whenever, hope it lands, chase views, chase likes, wait for someone to DM them, random tactics, no order. What we're doing here is we're looking at what are we doing to attract, nurture, and convert people. We're building on the buyer psychology. We're getting predictable leads, calls, and clients, which we can literally do the math. And if you actually track this stuff as well, if you do this for 1 month and you track it, boom, now you have a baseline. Okay, you know what can be improved, you know where you're currently at, and okay, where am I actually trying to get to here? What do the numbers look like? What's weak and what are the strengths? So that you can alter things and make adjustments and optimize. So we're getting the right systems in the right order. And the thing is, strangers don't become clients by accident. They move through the journey on purpose. So if you want to find your number one constraint right now, based on the numbers, or if you don't know the numbers, then figure out what numbers you actually need to be tracking to know what's actually holding your business back and build the plan around it. Then what we can do is hop on a free roadmap call where we pinpoint the biggest thing holding your growth back right now, map out the exact systems and infrastructure to build in the right order for the highest return on investment, then book a call in the link in the description below, and we'll do this together on the call so you walk away with 100% clarity around what needs to happen to 3x your business over the next 3 months. So book a call, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.